All of them. Not just, necessarily people who you aspire to be, but even your peers. Sometimes they may be doing great things, and you can learn a lot from literally anybody.
Welcome back to Have a Map, where we talk all things career. I'm your host, Mamadou Njai. Back in the flesh. I'm excited because I feel like we haven't done a podcast episode for like 2 months. It's crazy. But we have a guest. I'm excited to introduce our guest. But before we go there, I want to introduce my co-host, Aaliyah. Can you say what's up? Introduce yourself to the people real quick.
Okay. Hi, my name is Aaliyah Kane. I am an intern in the IO department, just like HR kind of. I'm from like small town Morrilton, Arkansas, and I go to school at Hendrix College.
Hey,
Repping Hendrix.
rep your set. Rep your set. Okay, that's lit. That's lit. I love that. So coming to our host, we have or our guest for today, we have Martine Balthazar, soon to be.
Mrs. Obang.
There we go. There we go. Martine, how are you doing? Can you introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, so I'm Martine Balthazar for now. I am originally from right outside of Chicago, Evanston, Illinois, which, quick detour, is the first city to actually pass a bill on trying to give reparations back to the Black community. So shout out to them. So I am currently an HR manager for the Frito-Lay division of PepsiCo. Been with the organization for 6 years, which is crazy to say. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys.
This is exciting. Wow, look at that. She gave y'all some good insight today. I'm geeked. This is good. Yes, and we're excited to have you. So as we just, jump right into it, what exactly does your title mean, right? What does that role mean? Because, a lot of students and for understanding of our podcast, right? Have a Map is all about finding direction. So, you might see a title, but I don't know what you do on a day-to-day basis. So can you tell us a little bit about what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so well, for most of my career, because I just got into a more specialized project role a few months back, but for most of my career, I've been what many people call a generalist. So I have focused a lot on literally everything. So from the day-to-day of employee relations, so think if an employee has an issue with their manager, an employee is beefing with their coworker and they don't want to work next to them anymore, they come to HR. Also, a lot of change projects to make sure that the organization is being as efficient as possible. And with any change project, making sure that we're looking at the people side and the people impacts correctly. And then lastly, what I actually enjoyed the most, which was actually career development. So with the managers that I was supporting, making sure that there was a plan for their career, and that we were also focusing on that and getting out of the day-to-day business as well.
Wow, you do so much. You do so much.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And HR usually doesn't get a lot of thank yous. So we are looked at as sometimes the feds of the organization. But, we serve a purpose. And even though it's a lot, it can also be really rewarding as well.
Yeah. And especially in that like recruitment space, I feel like is super important. And especially all the things that are going with diversity and things of that nature right now. So I definitely get that.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about how you got into that position? Because Pepsi is like a name brand and that's super awesome. So in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, you're a superstar. So can you tell me like how you even got there?
Yeah. So it's an interesting journey. I don't think well, not many people that I know anyway, grow up saying that they want to be an HR manager or they want to be in HR. I always knew I wanted, well, what I wanted to do originally was be a like I want to work with kids and possibly be a pediatrician. But then I got into school and I took maybe, I don't even think it was Chem 101, I think it was Chem 100. And I was like, no, that is not for me, no science, none of that. So I was a psychology major. And then as I was getting closer to senior year, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I know if I graduate with my psych major, I'm not going to be able to make the money to support myself that I necessarily would like. So I started thinking about grad school, but then with that, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with grad school, but I think I took maybe an IO class. And I was like, okay, you know, at the end of the day, most people spend the most time at work. They spend more time, you know, in the workplace than they do at home. So maybe I can do something to make sure that the work environment is as optimal as possible. Because thinking back to when I was in high school, I've worked since like 16, 17. And my first job was in a department store. And when I tell you, those ladies were miserable. Like they were like, my manager doesn't listen to me doing this, or that. So all that to say, like senior year, I was like, okay, let me look into IO. But then when I did my research and saw that, you know, a lot of people have to get their PhD, I knew I could not spend that much time in school just because I would probably go crazy. So my sister told me about this program at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, which was centered around HR. So I looked into it. Great program, top ranked, and most importantly, they had a good placement of jobs after graduating. So I was like, okay, let me try it. Took the GRE, got into the program, and then from there, interned with Pepsi and then went on full time.
Wow. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And just thinking about that, I want to break that down for our listeners, right? You face adversity as a lot of us do when you graduate and you're trying to figure out what works well, right? You understood, for yourself, I wanted to live this type of lifestyle. So how can that reflect how you want to live a certain type of lifestyle, but you also wanted to help people. So how do those two things come together? Found a program that spoke to that, and then you also understood that that program was a pipeline to get job placement at the same time, which a lot of us don't really see or try to accomplish, which is so important because there's a lot of those programs out there. We just got to do the research. And I think that is something that, one, is a lot to process and think about. And most of us are not thinking in that space. So how do you even get your mindset to even start to think in that manner? Because it's very methodical, very thought out, very focused.
So I will say that I had a lot of help, a lot of hand holding along the way. Like most people who look like us, you know, I didn't necessarily come from a family that I could lean on for like seeing the image of what I necessarily wanted to be. Because first generation, Mo, you already know this, and you know, my mom came to this country just really working hard, and you know, day to day was a struggle. So all that to say, I am very lucky because I have an older sister who has kind of paved the way for me. And she already knew a lot about the program. She already knew a lot about master's programs in general. And the fact that, you know, many people may go into a master's program, but they still won't come out with a job. So she told me, if you're going to go into a program, make sure you research not just the program itself, but what companies are coming to that program and talking to students? Like, what access do you have? What clubs can you join? How are you actually going to network in order to grow past just that degree? So I was very, very lucky to have her to help me think through that, because to your point, I wasn't when I was researching for programs. I was just like, I need something to do once I graduate.
Use your resources. That's what Martine is telling you. You should use your resources. Please,
Yes.
please.
Okay. I actually have a question, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I was wondering if you could talk more about kind of how you like put yourself into like a situation frame, like being confident as a Black woman in like, you know, kind of like a not I guess a position where like you kind of may feel out of place maybe, because I feel like that's kind of like my concern going into the professional environment.
Yeah, that's an everyday struggle. I haven't necessarily mastered that. I am very much an introvert. I like to be in my corner. I don't necessarily need all of the people interaction, and I hate getting in front of crowds. So even when I tell my friends what I do, they're like, not the Martine I know. So I mean, what I've learned is that you grow when you are in uncomfortable positions. And you're never necessarily going to grow if you're feeling comfortable, right? So my first role was actually in Maryland, and I never thought I was going to leave Chicago. I always dreamed of staying in that beautiful city, but being forced outside of my comfort zone, that's when I was probably a year into my role, and I was like, I looked back at the Martine that had just moved from Chicago, and I literally could not understand who I was anymore, because of everything that I had to do within that year time frame. So I don't know if there's necessarily a good way to answer that, but all of the growth comes in those times where you are uncomfortable. And even like in my last role, where I had to get in front of shifts of people, probably 150 at a time, 5 times a week, and talk. I don't know. It comes with time, and you have to know how to give yourself that grace to grow, because you're not always going to get it right the first time, but the more you do it, the longer you do it, the more comfortable you become.
That's really good advice. And that's helpful because I'm also really introverted, even though I want to go into HR, which is a people field. So, like, seeing other people that kind of, have had the same feelings as me is really nice. I also had another question about what does work look like for you, like pre-COVID, and now like we're still in the middle of a pandemic, basically. So how has that changed?
I think it would be easier for me to kind of explain what the day-to-day of a HR manager in Frito looks like. So most people come in like me as a generalist. They either go into what we call a plant, so the buildings that actually produce your Cheetos, Fritos, Doritos, etc., or they'll go onto the sales side of the organization, supporting the people that put the chips on the shelves. So if you ever see those Pepsi or those Frito like box trucks, they are going to your Walmarts, your Targets, your gas stations, and putting those chips on the shelves. So if you're in a plant, like I said before, you're usually doing a lot of employee relations stuff. So all the drama, right? They come into your office, they're talking to you, managers are coming in saying person A did this and I want to write him up or I want to fire him. So life pre-COVID was just a whole hodgepodge of everything. I could probably have a huge to-do list and I wouldn't get anything done because somebody came into my office and was crying. You're walking them through anything. Life post-COVID, or I guess during COVID, was really hard because a lot of the COVID responsibilities fell on HR. And it became you know, can this person come into the building? What procedures do we have to put in place in order to make sure that we are protecting all of these frontline workers that have to work every day? What is the policy of somebody who's lying about being sick because they posted a picture and they're at the beach, even though they're saying that they have 106-degree fever? So a lot of it was making sure that we are still able to run the business, but still keeping our people safe. And I will not lie to you, I literally became a doctor in the course of one day. So it's been a very interesting dynamic to kind of work through. But also, like I said at the beginning, it is rewarding, scary, but rewarding, because at the end of the day, you are keeping people safe, even though your business partners are telling you that they can work. And I know I just said a lot, so I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that was awesome.
I'm curious, this is off of our topic, but what type of innovation do you start to think will happen because of COVID, right? What is for you, what do you think post COVID looks like in the space of employee company relations?
Um, it's a hard question because I think it'll be very two-part. Like for your frontline workers that are, don't have a choice of working at home, who have to come in, I don't know if there's going to be that much of a change, because even in where we are right now, it looks very similar outside of masks and trying to stay apart. In terms of, like, your exempt employees who mostly can work from home, um, I don't know. I think organizations are figuring out that, we don't have to get in person, of course, to do anything. Um, so what are you going to do with the building spaces that we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent for every month? I don't think that they're necessarily gonna exist. I think they're gonna be more of a, hey, if we need to collaborate and think through a special project, maybe we can get together. I think the way we work and interact is gonna look very different even after COVID.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
It
Are
is
And
very
you
interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go
Are
ahead.
you mostly working from home, or are you like actually in the office?
So in the role that I was just in, I was the HR manager for our plant in Orlando, Florida. And I was going in every day. And I probably didn't have to, but I didn't feel right about supporting a group that was going in every day. Um, so I felt that I needed to be there for my people. Um, in my role today, which is more headquarters focused, I am working from home.
Okay. Do you still deal with a lot of people? Because I just want to know what conflict resolution looks like over, I guess, like a Zoom meeting.
Hmm.
That's
Good.
a good question.
Okay. With the fire.
I think it looks the same as it would if you were in like a room. It's just now you're talking to boxes over a computer. I don't necessarily think it's that different though, depending on what the issue is. And I can walk you through something that could happen with me. So we have it's called our speak up line. So if an employee feels that something is not going right in the organization, they can call this 1-800 number if they don't want to go through their manager or their HR person directly. And then that is then given to the right HR person. And in an investigation, the first thing you're going to do is, if it's not anonymous and you know who it is, you talk to the person. You get more of the details, and then you go to whoever the issue is against. So whether it's a manager or another employee, then you either call them. If we were in the office, bring them into the office. If it's over, if everybody's working from home, you have a Zoom call. Depending on what the resolution would be, whether it's, a lot of times people just need to talk. So, you get them together and you talk to them, or you talk one-on-one and make sure that everybody knows what the resolution is. But it all kind of looks the same because, it's at the basis, at the core of it, it is a conversation. Usually. I won't say all the time, but usually.
One of my last questions, I'm gonna say this is my last question for you, has to do with transferable skills, right? Because and transferable knowledge, right? So a lot of the times, when we're working with students, they're saying, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing in school is not always completely applicable to some of the stuff that I'd be doing in the real world. What is your take on that idea, right? I know with your role, it's probably a lot different because there's a lot of psychology practices, methods, things of that nature that transfer over. But I'd be curious to know, like, what are some of the things that you feel like you still kind of use on a day-to-day basis?
From school?
Mm-hmm.
So probably the best class that I took was a change management class. And I don't necessarily remember every single detail, but and I forget his first name, but it's like the Cotter change model or something like that. And I think there's 7 steps. And when you go through a change, whether it's big or small, you should literally go through those 7 steps. And I, again, don't necessarily remember every single detail, but one of the things I remember my professor said in class was, if you're rolling out a change and the first time the manager is hearing it is in the same room as the people that report into that manager, you're not doing it right. So before I do any change, whether it's, we're changing the policy from A to B, or we're no longer going to be producing something in this way, we're producing it in this way. I make sure to, go through the right sequential order in order to not ruffle anybody's feathers, because that causes a whole bunch of unnecessary pushback that slows the process down, and B, just to be respectful of people, because change is never easy. So you want to make sure that you're trying to be as smooth as possible throughout the process.
I was taking notes. You see, I was I said, oh.
Okay, if you're gonna look into it, Google the 7 steps of change, and then the person's name is Kotter. yes, and that's always relevant in anybody's role.
Very cool. No, this is great. Great information. Um, actually, I'll let Aaliyah go. My bad.
Oh yeah, I definitely had a question. Okay, what advice would you give someone who's wanting to get their foot into HR? Like, for example, I am a psychology major. I'm going to graduate with my BA in psychology, and then I'm going into grad school for management. But I really want to go into HR too. That's kind of like what I'm leaning towards. But I just don't know. Like, I feel like nothing I'm doing is very relevant to HR at the moment.
First, when are you graduating?
I am graduating from Hendrix in May.
Okay, so I'm gonna just say early congrats because you are almost there, and good job for making it this far.
Thank you.
And you know, you don't necessarily have to have like HR like roles to go into HR. But what I will say is try to get as much like experience in HR type things. So think through, how have you supported other people? Like there's a lot of ways you can wordsmith things to show that, you can do things that are HR related. So if you're going into a program, you said for managing, leading
Management, yes.
management. Okay. So if you could find internships during your time, always get as involved as you can as well. So if there are any clubs that you can join, any uh, uh, I'm blanking on like a lot of the clubs that are specific to like grad programs, but also think, and I can get you this information as well because I am blanking, but there are other organizations you can join that might be more towards like an MBA, but still can look great on a resume. So all that to say, always have your resume in mind and what you can put on there. Don't, if you can help it, because grad school programs can also be very time consuming. So don't stress yourself out to the point where, you can't eat, you can't sleep, because I'll never recommend that. But as much as you can, just not just do coursework, get as involved as possible as you can. And then when you're looking for internships as well, if you can find something that's more HR geared, then do that as well.
Okay.
But and just to let you know, like when I was actually looking for internships and looking for full-time roles, I didn't necessarily have anything HR on my resume. That's why I'm saying that. I didn't have like before I got into Pepsi, I didn't have an HR job. But when I got into the interview, I was able to say, I can be a good HR person because I know how to support people who work on third shifts because I worked a third shift. I know I can be a good HR person because I'm passionate about this and I've done this, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense, and that helps me a lot too. Also, this is kind of a technical question, but would you recommend like doing certifications? Because I know that's like you see a lot of commercials for HR related certifications, but are they necessary?
No, they're not. Like SHRM is a big one. One of those that you can definitely get involved in grad school. But it's not necessary. I think more so depending on like what program you go to. And if you can get something like an actual HR internship, I would say get a certificate. If you don't get a master's in HR, and that's something that you can add to your resume that shows that you have some sort of HR experience, but it's not necessarily necessary.
Okay.
It all depends on what you have.
This is great insight. This has been a great interview, Marcy. I feel like time has flown by. I'm trying to keep track of time. So this last question, we talked about this previously to the taping. So my last question always has to do with music because we love music at DIM events. So let's think about this. Song, maybe an artist or an album that speaks to the last week of your life. And this is a song for Martine. This is a question for Aaliyah as well. Aaliyah will be answering, and I'll answer at the end, or I can start off. Actually.
You go ahead and start since you already have your answer.
Okay. Wow. All right. Dang. I didn't know y'all was gonna put me on the spot like that. I'm gonna take it to Rick Ross. Tears of Joy. You see, I just did that for y'all. But Rick Ross recently did a Tiny Desk performance that I'll probably watch tonight before I go to sleep because Rick Ross is one of my favorite people. He's hilarious. But that Tears of Joy represents the struggle of going from broke to successful and all the in-betweens of the struggle that you have to deal with that you think leave when you're broke, but it still shows as you continue to become successful. Just come to me if you're looking for music breakdowns because I'm on my free time as well. But yeah, that's my pick. That's my pick.
Okay. I can go. So I'll say Solange, A Seat at the Table. And I say that because one, always respect my sister who is a very big on talking about a lot of the issues that Black women have to deal with as we are going through our day-to-day and calling out specific things like, depression and all of that. Not to say that this week has been depressing, it has not. But I am very privileged to be in many rooms that people who typically look like me do not have access to. I'm able to help influence many decisions, but with that sometimes comes a lot of self-doubt and trying to work my way out of that. But we will always get through it. We will always work through it. And at the end of the day, I'm always going to be grateful for the position that I'm in.
I'm not gonna lie, that might have been the best ones that I heard. Usually people just say something and they're like, yeah, and I'd be like, oh, that's cool. But you broke it down too. All right, Aaliyah,
Man, y'all both had beautiful responses, and literally all I can think of is Return of the Mac by Mark Morrison because that is my theme song for life, and I listen to it every single day, and that's all I can.
Hey, everybody need a theme song for life. I need that. I'm too
Theme
inconsistent.
song for my life as well.
I'm inconsistent. I need something that just get me every day. So, nah, that's fire. That's fire. Well, One thing we like to do on the podcast and what we do at Dem Events, we give everybody a round of applause. So thank you so much, Martine, for being a part of this podcast. You shed so many jewels and so much knowledge. And we're truly thankful to have you on here. And especially taking your time out of your busy day, newly engaged. So I know you out here living life, you're shining. So we just want to say congratulations as well from Dem Events. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. And Leah, please, I can actually put can you send her my
I got
information?
you. We'll
Yeah.
send everything.
Please feel free, call, email. I know I didn't answer some questions all the way. So I am happy to actually go into some more detail with you. And please reach out whenever. I'm happy to help.
All right, thank you so much. I'll be so happy to connect with you.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening, whether this was your morning routine, afternoon routine, or the thing you do before you go to sleep. We are out. Skr, skr.